Yeah, go ahead.
Right. It was just a quick short dream. I looked at my I guess it's my left forearm and I had a tattoo. Oh no, sorry, different dream. Sorry. The one I submitted was I saw a orange lottery ticket, like the long orange ones that you pick your numbers on, and it had a series of numbers and it said in my dream, either I heard it said to me or I said it, this is the winning ticket. And that was it. So the numbers were, I don't recall exactly what order they were in, but it was 2, 6, no, 2, 8, 10, 40, 44, and 88.
2, 8, 10, 40, 44, and 88. Wow, there's just so much right there. This is a dream that it would be difficult to do this in a short amount of time because there's things that God is saying. One of the first things I hear is U.S. presidents. So we know that 44 was before 45, right? So
Right.
Obama. 40 um, was Reagan, right? Was 40 Reagan? Because 41 was George H.W. Bush.
Yep.
Um, 2, of course, was John Adams. So see, this is one of those dreams that in order to get the full understanding, 2, 8, 10, 40, 44, and 88. It's super interesting. By the way, 88. I love the number 88 simply because my dad was, he was a ham radio operator. And so he knew Morse code. And so he knew how to communicate with Morse code on the radio and all of that. And he grew up as a kid, after World War II, collecting radio parts, building his own radios. And then, of course, when computers came along, he got into computers and all of that stuff. But we would find notes from my mom and dad, and my dad and mom would always sign their letters to each other 88. And we're like, as kids, like, what the heck does 88 mean? And he's like, well, you'll have to figure it out. And so he never told us. And one day I was down in the basement. I came across an old Morse code book, and I realized that they had shorthand in Morse code.
Mm.
And the shorthand of 88, it means love and hugs or love and kisses. And so it's a way of, it's a term of endearment of signing off. But it was like a double code because it was Morse code, but then it was shorthand for what it actually meant. So it was a double encoded type of cipher that my parents would use, which I think was fascinating. But it's also, of course, the idea of, the 8 on its side is the infinity symbol. 8 can mean new beginnings, but particularly 88 is like the double, right? It's like the 8 times 11. I mean, there's just so much related to alignment, related to new beginnings, related to double portion, related to what's coming next. So God is talking about, in particular, what's coming next. He's given you this number combination, which I believe is also a combination that's going to unlock something in particular. What was the setting at the beginning?
There wasn't really a setting. I just saw the ticket in my hand and the numbers.
Lottery ticket.
It was the longer ticket that you actually, it wasn't the short one that they print for you, but it was the longer one that you actually pick the numbers on. Because it was a long orange ticket, and all I saw was the ticket and the numbers, and I said, this is the winning ticket.
Wow. It's the second that you said orange, I heard orange man bad. And so if that has to do with the winning ticket and the orange man being the winning ticket, that would be a revelation that probably a lot of us may have a sense of prophetic discernment and agree with. But the numbers in particular are a code, and it's a coded message. I feel like it's not just presidents, obviously, because 88 would be an anomaly, but it's the idea of several things. And I think one of the things is dates in particular, and it could even be locations. What I would suggest, and what we would like to send this dream to us, I would like to put a team on the stream and begin to really unpack the fullness of what the depth of these numbers mean. So if like 40 or 2 is talking about John Adams doesn't mean anything to you if you don't study presidential history. If you know who John Adams was and what he was known for, then you can begin to piece together, okay, well, this means this and this means this. When several friends of mine had dreams about Abraham Lincoln, I ended up spending 60 or 100 hours researching Abraham Lincoln, and now I have a pretty good understanding of what the symbol of Abraham Lincoln means in a dream. So the same is with this dream. It seems like a very simple dream, but a lot of times numbers. Now again, the dream dictionary approach is to go through, oh, 2 is like unity, and 8 is new beginnings, and 10 is, it doesn't tell you anything, you know.
Right. Yeah,
So
I did all of that.
yeah, right. So what God is saying is go deeper and go deeper and look into, there's a code here. And a lot of times what I've seen in number patterns is one code overlaying another code. In fact, there was a dream that I did that had 5 numbers. And the first thing that God said was year. And it's 5 numbers long. I'm like, well, that's a long time into the future, because we're in 4-digit numbers if it has to do with year, but it represented actually the year of Jubilee and leap year cross-referenced when is the last time that occurred, and it was 2016. And then God said code, and so I looked up Morse code, I looked up the federal code of the country, I looked up the California state code, and there were each sections in each one of these that, and there was even a zip code and a PO box related to a particular zip code. So there were literally 5 different codes related to the same number sequence that when you put them together, they all merged into one complete idea. So those kind of dreams are coded ciphers, and it takes a little bit of time to discern what they mean and to really dig into the depth of what those are. So I'm happy to take a look at those. But what I believe is this is a dream particularly about current events, but it's in light of past events. It's in light of things related to, and I'll just give you one little piece. 2 represents John Adams. Okay, so the first president we had was George Washington. He was pretty much, nobody wanted to run against George Washington, so he went virtually unopposed for the first 2 terms. Right after that, he said, I'm not going to run again. And so John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, a bunch of people came together. If John Adams won, Thomas Jefferson became because back in those days, if you were a Democrat and I was a Republican and you won, the person that was vice president was the person that had the second most votes. So you would have a Democrat president and a Republican vice president, or backwards. And so John Adams was a Republican. Thomas Jefferson was a Democrat, but he was the second most votes. So when it came time for the next election, which was the election of 1800, in the election of 1800, 222 years ago exactly, in the election of 1800, it was the rematch of John Adams versus Thomas Jefferson. The only reason I know this is because God brought it up in a dream and related it to the election of 2020. And he showed us this in July, in advance of the election. In July of 2020, he showed us this, and he was comparing the election of 2020 to the election of 1800. And I have no idea what the election of 1800 is. So I found several books on the election of 1800. And what happened was John Adams was president. Thomas Jefferson was vice president. They ran again. And I kid you not, you can look it up. There was mail-in voter fraud in the state of Georgia in 1800. And so what happened is they sent in 2 envelopes of electors, one Republican, one Democrat. They sent them in to to Congress, and the job constitutionally of the vice president, which people argue this is in the Constitution. Constitutionally, the job of the vice president is he decides which envelope he's going to open. And it can't be taken back by the Supreme Court, and the legislative body doesn't get a say, and neither does the executive branch. It all falls, the weight of that decision falls on one person, which was the importance of the decision that Mike Pence made January 6th. is it fell to that one person. And what Thomas Jefferson did. Now, the governor, the elector, the election officials, even the media was saying, we believe the Democrats cheated and the Republicans didn't. And so he should open the Republican slate of electors. Well, he did not. He was a Democrat. He opened the Democrat slate of electors, which created an exact tie in the Electoral College, which caused them to go into a runoff, which was a vote in Congress. And so God is telling me that there's going to be a tie in the Electoral College and a vote in Congress that decides the president in 2020. I'm like, what are you even talking about? Is that even possible? Of course, I never thought about the option of 5 different swing states in contention sending in 2 envelopes of electors, which again is exactly what happened in the election of 1800. So even though I didn't understand and I read to understand and I started saying, well, here's what I feel like God is saying in this dream as I'm decoding this dream, I still didn't know how it would play out. It's exactly what happened in the election of 2020. So I think when all of that is significant by the number 2, if 2 represents presidents, it's the idea of John Adams. And the idea of John Adams won first, and I believe actually rightfully won even the second time, but historically, not based on my opinion, but based on what other people at the time have said. And what happened was the vice president made a decision that caused the winning ticket to change.
Oh.
So if you relate that to what's happening now, there's a group of people, however big people think this group of people is, who question what really happened in the election of 2020. And so if it's an orange ticket, well, orange, that color in particular tends to represent one of the candidates more than the other, certainly, that ran for the presidency in 2020. And if it says winning ticket, that's interesting. But then there's these numbers, and what do these numbers mean? Do they have the level of depth like 2 just did as we took it all the way through back to the election of 1800? Or do they mean multiple different things? Are they a cipher to tell us what to do and what the actionable intelligence is? Or are they giving us more of a historic basis to help us understand the times that we live in? The answer is yes.
Okay.
So yeah, send that in so we make sure that we get the numbers written down correctly. And boy, that's an amazing dream. And there's a lot more to that dream than what we're able to unpack here in just a few minutes live.
Yeah, I did submit it already.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll take a look at it then.
Okay, great. I've had a lot of dreams since then. I actually pray at night and ask God to speak to me. That's how he speaks to me. So I've always dreamt. And so I've been writing them down. I've submitted quite a few to you.
Awesome. Do you ask him particular questions, or do you say, speak to me whatever you want, or do you say, tell me what's going on in Europe, or tell me what's going on?
I just ask, I just say, I want to hear from you. I want revelation.
There's something, and this is all through scripture, I'm sure you know this, but there's something that really, I feel like, activates a part of the heart of God when we position ourselves to hear from him and say, we want to know, speak to us. It's akin to Samuel. Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. It's what Eli told him when he heard the voice of God 3 different times. Just say, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. And it was in the night hour, too, that this was happening. So I find it fascinating that there's people like you, like me, who every night before I go to bed, I want to ask God a question. Sometimes I do. I want to know about a particular thing. And others, it's just like, just speak to me. I want to know what's on your heart. So I love that you have a journey like that, Trish. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.